Martina Navratilova urges bigger courts as Eala becomes tennis top crowd magnet. What unfolded at Melbourne Park during Eala's Australian Open debut was not just a scheduling miscalculation. It was a loud, unmistakable signal that women's tennis has a new box office force, and that tournament organizers may already be playing catch-up. Eala's first-round match at the Australian Open was placed on Court 6, one of the venue's smaller show courts. Hours before the match, long lines of fans, many draped in Philippine flags, wrapped around walkways and spilled into adjacent areas as capacity filled. Security eventually advised late arrivals to stop lining up. Hundreds never made it inside. Videos of the jammed entrances and restless crowds quickly went viral, reinforcing a reality that has followed Eala across continents. Wherever she plays, Filipinos follow. Few voices in tennis carry more authority on such matters than Martina Navratilova, and the 18-time Grand Slam champion did not mince words when asked about the scenes. While praising the fans' discipline and enthusiasm, she pointed to the root of the issue: anticipation, or the lack of it. Well, Lindsay was trying to get there. It's amazing that people were so nicely standing in line. But they would be there for at least an hour, if they ever got to the match, so kudos to the fans. The players have no idea this is happening, Navratilova said during a Tennis Channel discussion. Her most pointed observation, however, was directed squarely at organizers. I think the organizers need to keep more in mind where the players are from, and what the actual fan base is here, because there is massive Filipino audience here in Melbourne, in Australia. So keep that in mind next time you make the schedule, she added. The Melbourne episode was not an isolated case. Over the past year, Eala has quietly emerged as the biggest crowd drawer in women's tennis, driven by one of the most passionate and mobile fan bases in global sport. In Hong Kong, local tournament officials reported queues stretching well beyond venue entrances whenever Eala was scheduled to play, with tickets selling out early and walk-up fans turned away. Similar scenes played out in Macau, where Filipino supporters arrived hours in advance, filling stands and creating atmospheres more reminiscent of national team events than regular tour matches. Even fellow players have taken notice. Earlier this January, Croatian standout Dana Vekic openly remarked on the consistency of Eala's support, noting that Filipino fans continue cheering regardless of scorelines or opponents. Half joking, Vekic suggested Filipinos should adopt her as well, a light-hearted nod to the visibility and warmth of Eala's following, even toward those sharing the court with her. In Melbourne, that energy was palpable from the opening game. Eala surged to a stunning first set against Alicia Parks, fueled by roars that echoed well beyond Court 6. While the American eventually asserted her power to close out the match, the result felt secondary to the spectacle around it. Eala stayed on court long after the handshake, signing autographs and acknowledging fans who had waited hours just to catch a glimpse. In an era when tournaments compete fiercely for attention, Eala represents something increasingly rare: organic star power. She does not need a prime-time slot to draw interest. The interest follows her. Navratilova's comments captured what many observers have already concluded, that court assignments and scheduling models must evolve alongside the sport's changing demographics. Eala may still be early in her Grand Slam journey, but in terms of live draw, few players in tennis can match her right now. The crowds in Melbourne, Hong Kong, and Macau have already delivered their verdict. The question left hanging after the Australian Open is whether organizers will listen and finally give the sport's most magnetic attraction the stage her fans are clearly demanding. Martina Navratilova urges bigger courts as Eala becomes tennis top crowd magnet. Tennis has always been a game of lines. Baselines and sidelines. Winners and errors. Past and future. Yet every so often, a player comes along who makes the lines feel too small, who stretches the imagination of what the sport can contain. In the hush before a serve and the roar after a rally, the court itself begins to feel inadequate. Martina Navratilova knows this feeling. She felt it in the 1970s when she rewrote what athleticism meant in women's tennis. She felt it when power met grace, when the net became a place of ambition rather than fear. And now, decades later, she feels it again as she watches a new kind of phenomenon take shape in the stands rather than solely between the lines. With a wry smile and unmistakable conviction, Navratilova has joked, half seriously, that tennis may soon need bigger courts. Not for the players, but for the people who come to watch one in particular. Eala. At first glance, Eala does not look like a revolution. She does not carry herself with the thunder of inevitability that once followed Serena Williams, nor does she announce her presence with brute force. Instead, she arrives with something subtler and, in its own way, more disruptive: connection. Wherever she plays, crowds grow denser, louder, more emotionally invested. People lean forward. Phones rise into the air. Flags appear where none existed before. Tennis, long accused of being distant and polite, suddenly feels intimate. Navratilova, a lifelong student of the sport's rhythms, sees what is happening. Tennis courts, she suggests, were designed for a different era, one in which attention was orderly, applause was restrained, and heroes were admired from afar. Eala's rise challenges that architecture. She draws not just fans but communities. She brings families who have never watched tennis before. She carries a nation's pride with her footsteps, and when she swings, it feels as though millions swing with her. In this sense, the call for bigger courts is not literal. It is cultural. Eala represents a shift in how tennis is consumed. Her matches feel less like isolated sporting events and more like gatherings. There is laughter in the crowd, nervous chanting, spontaneous applause after long rallies even when she loses the point. This is not passive spectatorship. It is participation. The court becomes a stage too small for the story unfolding around it. Navratilova understands the power of such moments because she once stood at their center. She remembers when tennis had to expand to accommodate stronger bodies, faster games, and bolder identities. Now, the expansion is emotional and global. Eala's appeal lies not only in her talent but in what she symbolizes: accessibility, representation, and the idea that tennis no longer belongs to a narrow world. When Eala walks onto court, she carries the Philippines with her, but she also carries something broader: the hunger of fans who want to see themselves reflected in the game. For young players watching from thousands of miles away, her presence quietly says, "You belong here too." That message travels faster than any forehand. This is why Navratilova pays attention.